I see One Nation's being the only consistent political party for the last 20 years.
They're not talking about you. All right. Well, let me tell you, One Nation is talking about you.
It's like the media's run away from One Nation. They're too scared to ask us any questions, mainly because we're straight talkers and we've got the answers.
This is like a call to arms. You guys need to start making the real decisions and who you're going to vote for.
Okay, everyone. Hello and welcome back. This is the ExCandidates episode 3. Can you believe it? We're still rolling. So I'm Stephen Tripp, former One Nation candidate for Warringah. We've got Zahra for Macarthur, and soon to be the champion of Campbelltown, and Thompson, One Nation candidate for Hume. And tonight we are very privileged to be joined by Yvette Peterson from Stand Up and Vote Australia website, and she was doing the speed series with all the candidates during the election. So we're very privileged to have her on and to get her thoughts on her experiences throughout the election. So how are you, Yvette?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very privileged to be your first official guest.
Yes, it's very exciting for us as well. Hopefully everything.
The other guys, I don't get to do the interviewing.
Yes, this will be a speed round, so we have to answer these questions very quickly.
Welcome, Yvette. Thank you. Hi, Adam.
It's nice to see you again, but I'm interviewing you this time.
I know. And at least, thank God, I was like, do you have your timer? Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
So we'll see how we go, guys.
So what did you, during the election, you did do these speed candidate videos. What were you hoping to achieve by doing those?
A couple of things, really. What we were finding was obviously the media was not giving any attention to anybody that wasn't the two major parties. And so firstly, we needed to get people to meet you guys, to meet the different candidates, and give you a platform that you could share. So essentially give you a video that you could share to your networks that had your thoughts, that got people to meet you. And so one of the things that we felt was really important at Stand Up and Vote is that people voted on the quality and the character of the candidates. And during the whole process, I kept saying that over and over again. You need to vote on the quality of the candidates. And the only way that people can do that is actually get to know the candidates. And so it's very, very hard for them to do that. And so it was essentially where it started. And there was a back end of that, because one of the visions that we had when we started Stand Up and Vote was to get an army of volunteers. Is what we were looking for. We wanted an army of volunteers to not only help educate the Australian public, but to help all the various candidates, and to have scrutineers more than we needed everywhere, all over the place. Like, that was our vision. And unfortunately, due to a number of factors, we were not able to fulfill that vision. And one of those was that Facebook was limiting our reach to Queensland. And so no matter what we did or how we tried to get our message out, to try and find volunteers in other states and scrutineers in other states, we were being limited. And so part of the flip side of us getting all the candidates on was the hope that those candidates would share our message and our Facebook and our website in your areas as well. And so that we would be able to try and rally some more support, which we found was incredibly difficult.
So one of the things I found in Warringah was trying to get media exposure. We're pretty much ignored here. And I honestly felt that the two best candidates was myself, because One Nation had policies that benefited all of Australians, and we had policies that targeted Warringah specifically. And the other candidate was the United Australia candidate, Andrew Robertson, who was a brilliant candidate, I thought, but we just didn't get the exposure because the spotlight was on Catherine Deves and Zahra Stegel, who I thought were one-trick ponies. They only really had one policy each that didn't really affect anyone in the electorate, but that's where all the exposure went to. So what you guys were trying to achieve, I think, was very powerful.
Yeah, I think it was really important for us that people got to meet their candidates specifically. And that's very, very hard for you guys to do. And so something that we kept saying was you really have to vote based on the quality and the character of the candidate. And without you getting your faces out there somehow, other than, trying to meet people at parks or whatever, it was really very, very hard for you to do. And so the media would only focus on, maybe Pauline, maybe Clive or whatever, but that was it. And it was usually they try to put a negative spin on it. So for us, it was really important to give you something that you were able to share within your communities and on Facebook, as well as get people within your communities to know who you are, what you stand for, and more importantly, too, what your policies are, because the general public, unless they specifically went to a website, they wouldn't necessarily know the policies of any of the smaller parties. And of course, originally, neither did we. So I think that was really important for us to share. And I think for us, too, it was important because we were being limited to Queensland. Stand Up and Vote was by Facebook. And so part of what we were doing in sharing your voice on our platform was in the hope that we would be able to have our voice and our website and what we were offering shared in other parts of the country by the various candidates, which was something that we were not able to do on our own, no matter how much we tried to boost it. And so because our website was obviously nationwide, and what we wanted, we delivered on. So there were many people who were saying that they were going to put, do the website and they were going to have different questions and whatever. But in the end, some of those fell over. And so we were really proud that we actually managed to deliver the website that we said we would deliver to help people make an educated decision. And also make that decision based on actual answers from candidates, as opposed to a generalised, just vote the majors last or the sitting members last, or something that was specific to the candidates themselves and their answers to what we sent them in an email. So that was really cool, and I think that was something that was different from all of the other sort of general websites that were out there too. So we really wanted to get that out to the Australian public, and we really wanted to get you guys as many volunteers as we could. And we knew that was going to be hard because we couldn't be out there.
Do you have something out of it?
Thanks for that, Yvette. So I found that social media was actually very restrictive as well. We actually cracked, me and myself and my campaign manager actually cracked the code and were able to boost posts twice, and then that was it. And then I went to go in and boost again, and it just would not let me do it. So it took us around about 3 or 4 months to crack the code. We got it done, and then they restricted us straight away. So there's a lot to answer. I think they have a lot to answer for on their restrictions. Hopefully, I don't know if Elon Musk has actually taken over Twitter or not yet, but hopefully maybe that might open it up, and I think we'll all be using Twitter as our main platform maybe next election. But you covered off pretty much how Stand Up and Vote Australia also kind of came about, because you wanted us to have a platform where candidates like myself, Rebecca and Stephen could actually have a video where we could send out our information from you guys across our support base. So I might just run down to here. So what was your opinion of the election result?
I think it was, well, I mean, we're still waiting, aren't we? I think it was unsurprising. A lot of people were shocked, I think. There was a lot of shock, and there was a lot of very sad faces. And I have to be honest, I was not expecting us to be able to flip this whole thing on its head first time around. Honestly, like our goal was really to try and make as much impact as we could, and actually Stand Up and Vote kind of started in the December. And our director, Deidre Abel, she is a nurse who lost her job in the mandate. She's incredible. If you go back and have a look at some of the various groups who've had her speaking at many events, and herself, she just got out everywhere. Like she drove everywhere to try and educate people. And so our primary goal for Stand Up and Vote Australia was to educate the Australian public on how to vote correctly, because nobody knew that, me included. So, you know, the previous election, when I would arrive to vote, I would not know even who I was voting for. I'd go, okay, that guy looks okay. I'll vote for him, but I didn't know about their policies. I didn't know how to vote properly. And we found that really surprising, where we have come across Australians who have been voting for decades, who have been voting incorrectly that whole time. And so Deidre thought that was going to be how we could really make an impact. And so our primary goal of Stand Up and Vote was to educate the Australian public on how the preferential voting system works, make sure they're voting correctly. And then get an army of volunteers and scrutineers. Primarily scrutineers is what we were after. Like tens of thousands is what we wanted.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my daughter. Tens of thousands is what we wanted. And we did not think that was unreasonable based on the amount of people we were seeing turn out at rallies. And somewhere close to the end date, if you guys may have seen me on Facebook, literally begging for volunteers. I was like, where are you? Where are you? All these people, all these millions of people who would be out every Saturday in the rain and with their signs, where are you?
Mm-hmm. Where's the 500,000 people that marched down the streets of Canberra? We still don't even have the official numbers for all that, but, you know, there was meant to be anywhere between... Sorry, what was that?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that was my glitch on the computer. So we had anywhere between the media estimated it at like 70,000 or something like that, and then a lot of people were saying 1 million people. So I just kind of went somewhere in the middle and kind of said there's around about 500,000 people there. That's all we needed. Those 500,000 people, especially if they were in New South Wales or if they were in Queensland, all they needed to do is on the one day that it really, really mattered, was to put their hand up and come out for us. It could have made the world a difference. I know that Rebecca herself had a you know, like one of those call to arms kind of moments on Facebook saying, where are you all? Like, you know, I was lucky. You can never have enough volunteers being a candidate. I was able to get in touch with a few people a few groups that were in the area. So I had a stand in the park. They helped me out a lot. And then I had another one as well, which was the Good Church. They also helped me out a lot actually. So I did get some volunteers, but I could have used, 100 more. And we would have been able to get the scrutineering happening a little bit better and all those kind of things. So that's, I think it's a process where now people are starting to wake up to how important it is to vote correctly. I always have taken it a little bit serious. So, I was one to go and vote, but I would always, probably about 2 weeks beforehand, I would probably just have a look at the policies between a few of the parties and, and just see who I thought was the best. But, but I've had an interest in politics for a long time. So, thank you for actually, contributing to Stand Up and Vote Australia and giving us guys a bit more of a platform to work off. And we'll be looking forward to definitely working with you in the future.
We intend to keep going. Like, we're not going anywhere. We're still paying very close attention to what is happening within the AEC right now and the election process as it stands. Because mean, we're weeks down the line. We still have a number of areas that need to be recounted, it seems, and we still don't have all our Senate candidates. And so ultimately, you know, especially with the way that it turned out, I'm hoping that we have learned, and when I say we, I mean like the global Australian we, have learned a lesson here, and that, you know, we're moving into a space where we had telephone votes that were jumped on a whole, you know, we were not aware that there was going to be telephone voting, and we know none of the candidates we spoke to were aware. But there was meant to be a scrutiny behind every single person answering a phone. Where was that call centre? Nobody even knew. So,
and that happened. That happened about. Wasn't that 24 hours or 48 hours before the election? They just made that happen.
And I'm originally from South Africa, and in South Africa, I was a call centre manager and consulted to call centres with regards to that. I know how long it takes to set up a call centre and train people to do that. It could not have been an overnight thing. That's impossible. So for me, I'm like, that was a planned thing, but we had no scrutineers. We had no scrutineers for postal votes. We should have had, you know, in our particular area, we actually, and this was really cool too, because Stand Up and Vote was nonpartisan in the middle, we had a lot of various candidates coming to us to get us to help them within their areas work together. So, for example, in my electorate, all the minor parties, we got them together, and they shared scrutineers. So they made sure that every single polling booth had one of their scrutineers, and they just made sure that, because presumably a person who cares about freedom, you know, for one party will care about freedom for another, and they're not going to let any kind of skullduggery happen. So they actually worked together to make sure that they could have, you know, all of their booths covered with scrutineers. And that was really cool for us because we were in the middle. We were kind of, I guess, a trusted middle ground for everybody. But kind of going into the next election, I think we know that we need to work together, all of us, a lot more. Probably one of the biggest battles we had was fighting against, again, freedom leaders telling people not to vote. I have always said I will never get on TikTok. I had to get on TikTok. I now have a TikTok account because we were getting all of this misinformation on how the voting system works, and cross a line through and say no suitable candidates, all this rubbish. Was all coming from TikTok. And so I literally went on TikTok, and my TikTok account is basically just my face speaking, trying to do myth busting about the election process and what is something you can actually do and what makes your vote worth just putting in the bin, and nobody cares if you've done no suitable candidates or whatever. And this very large group of people, it felt like, who were completely anti-voting at all.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, you know, for a lot of them, they're kind of, you know, wanting to build their communities and live off grid and, you know, all this kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But we need people in the government who are more open to the ideas that you have in order for that to ever be possible, because you can not participate in society as much as you want to. But if the police rock up on your door and bang on it, you're going with them. Like we've seen that happen. So suddenly
100%.
you're back in the system very quickly, no matter how you want to play it. And so that for us was really frustrating, because there were many times within the sort of 6-7 months, which is all we had. Stand Up and Vote has only been around for 6 months before the election, where we felt like we were fighting people on our own side to just get into action. And I think if, again, all those various freedom leaders who were not necessarily candidates, but have a platform, if they could get on board as well and encourage people to work together towards one goal as a unit, we would have so much more power. But still, going back to Adam, what you said about, you know, the outcome, I think the freedom movement has only really been around in Australia like this for 2 years. There's many of us who have had various different ways of thinking for longer, but the freedom movement has been around for 2 years, and what we've accomplished in those 2 years and in the last 6 months is nothing short of phenomenal. And I think we should all be really, really proud of that. You know, many of you guys 8 months ago would not have considered going through what you would have gone through in your areas to be a candidate. I wasn't brave enough. That's why I was doing stand up and vote. Like, I wasn't putting my name on the billboard. You guys did. All kudos to you. I think we've done some phenomenal stuff.
I think that's what I think that's what we have to focus on. Like, everyone looked at this federal election as like an end point, but it's just the beginning.
Just the start.
Yeah, you can't expect things to just happen things to happen overnight. And if you look through history and look at yeah, well, you're a different beast. But things sometimes they take decades, and you just have to, you have to keep keep moving forward. And that's what I was saying to a lot of people after the election. Look at what we've got here. Look at the group of people that we've got. Look at the network that we've put together. Look at Adam, Rebecca, and myself. Now we're moving into podcasting and just trying to keep our name out there. We're doing other things in the background as well. So this is more the beginning than the end. So moving forward, what are some of the lessons that you learned during the election that you think we should really focus on going forward?
I think we would probably get started a lot sooner. We would have loved to have a state manager in every single state and start building our volunteer teams earlier. We have a lot of resources now. We did so much scrutineer training that isn't available anywhere else that we're able to reuse. So I think for us, it's just to get organised sooner, to rally people sooner, to find different ways of reaching people, because we were severely limited. The only way we could do it was on social media, and in the hope that people would share us within their community groups. And even that was really difficult because various community groups didn't want us putting any political stuff in them. So even though they were a freedom group, they would decline our posts. For us to fulfill our vision of having an army of volunteers and scrutineers, that's going to take a lot of work. And obviously, like, we're not stopping. One of the things that I do, because I work online, that's my job. I'm a network marketer by profession, but I also happen to be the admin in many of the pro-choice groups around Southeast Queensland, really. And so we're starting to now build those relationships with those admins in other community groups across the country. And it's really all about, as you say, networking and building that community. I do think that some of the people who may not have voted or voted for, maybe Labor or the Greens, or I think there has to be a period of tape, I think, for lack of a better word. Like, okay, so we did this, that's some of it. Maybe we should think about some other options. And I think people don't do that. If they're comfortable, they have no reason to think. And I think people have stopped thinking.
I'm just having a look at the results for Rebecca's electorate, and she did fantastic. She was very high up there in the vote count. But if you look at down here, the informal votes, it's almost 8,000 votes that were informal. That can sway an election big time. Like, if you get it, sometimes swings of 3 or 4% make a big difference. But this is 7% of the vote just sitting there.
If I can just chime in there with my electorate, there's actually over 151,000 registered voters in my electorate, and yet we had like 107,000, I think it says there, or just over, 112 now, I haven't been checking, actually vote. And as you'll see at the top, I think we're almost finished. At the top, the count was at 95.2% or something when I checked last. So I'd really like to Yeah, so I'd love to know where all those other voters are, because I don't think they're all going to pop up in the next, 5 or 6%.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question. You have to wonder if some of those were the postal votes that went home with people into their garages, or if they were, the postie who dumped a whole heap, or, whatever. So, I mean, I think individually, we certainly had so many different responses from scrutineers and volunteers of things that they noticed that were not quite copacetic. And I think that's something that we've learned as well. This is the first time that we actually have sworn statements, and we have people with video and all sorts of stuff about things that have happened that were not particularly right. We've never had that before, because we've never had this level of interest before. And so people just have to stay on that. I think the voting system in Australia is fantastic. I knew nothing about it before. And again, that's what's been so like, it's just been really cool. If you consider that many people, like myself, 8 months ago, yes, I cared about freedom, but I knew nothing about voting. And by the time we got to the end, I was teaching people how to vote. And so how many more people could have done that? That's just, I'm not a political person. I'm a person who cares about confidence and freedom.
That would have been a really cool experience for you, especially your speed question series. Just interacting with all the different candidates. So, what was your experience with that? And which candidates for you stood out? And why was Rebecca the best candidate that you interviewed?
I can't even say. Like, I must be honest. I wasn't even really disappointed in any of them. Like, majority of the ones that I interviewed just were just awesome human beings. Across most of the parties, there weren't any that I was like, oh, I don't know. Some of them were not well prepared. So we actually, like, the public wouldn't have known this, but when we sent out instructions to candidates to be interviewed by us, we said things like, make sure that your background is clear, make sure that you don't read what, your answers. Like, I mean, we had certain candidates where I literally had a lady who I asked her about her background, and she read it. Known her background. It was just, it's just because they're not trained. And so I think something that is really important going forward is that people who are going to be candidates need to have some sort of preparation for that, to be able to speak in public, to be able to speak on social media, to know their stuff, and to know those basics of presenting. And it's not an easy thing to do. So we tried to help with that, and make that as simple as people could. But I have to be honest, like, they weren't, so other than some candidates being less prepared than others or more nervous than others, at heart, everyone's just awesome, like, just really, really good human beings. And that's what we wanted people to see. None of the people that we interviewed are career politicians. They're just everyday people, like the people who are voting. And so their understanding of what people are going through on an everyday basis and what we're all struggling with is there, which I feel like for a lot of the career politicians, all those ones who've been, sitting in the same seat for I don't know how many years, they just don't get it anymore. And many of them were not even aware that there's like a huge group of people who are really annoyed with them in their electorate. Just not connected with their communities. So I have to be honest. There was none that really stood out as better than others. But we were really, really impressed with the quality of the candidates as far as their integrity and their character.
And speaking is one of those things. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the better that you get at it. Like, I look at some of the speeches I did in the beginning. I was reading off a script as well, whereas it kind of hit home for me when I had a press conference with Mark Latham and Colin Grigg down at the Spit Bridge. They just spoke off the cuff, whereas I had some notes prepared because I was making an announcement and wanted to be very accurate with what I was saying. But as I was trying to turn the pages, the wind starts blowing, and I get
things you learn.
So learning from that, I'm like, I need to be able to just speak off the cuff. And I find the best speeches I made were where I had no notes prepared at all. And you just have to be prepared with what you're about to say.
I never have notes. So I've given speeches to 500 people with no notes because someone once said to me that if you have notes, you will subconsciously keep referring to them. If you don't, you can just wing it, right? You have an idea in your mind of where you want to go with what you want to say, but at least then people can really feel your heart, because that's what it really is. It's just about connecting with people on a real kind of heart-to-heart basis sometimes, because what you're doing really is you're asking for their trust, and that's hard to do that if you're too slick, or they can see that you read. Like, they don't know who read that stuff. I mean, we keep seeing like different videos of various politicians saying a speech, and then you realize that it's actually come from like a television episode or something, right? So
like
someone else
Albanese did.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. But yeah, so someone else is writing your stuff, and so I just feel like that would have been something I think going forward next time, is to give people some preparation on how to present themselves and how to speak to people. And you're right, it is a muscle. When I first started, so I've been doing network marketing for 3 years, but when I first started, there's no way you would have found me on a Facebook Live in 1,000 years. I didn't even have, family photos. It's always me taking photos of people. I never had my face on it. And so that's been a lesson that I've had to learn in that time, to get comfortable speaking on Zooms and, TikTok and whatever else, like Facebook Lives from marches or wherever we were out with our Stand Up and Vote T-shirts and my famous little freedom hat. People would just see this. Everybody was just like this lady with the hair and the white hat, and they would know that was me and be able to find, our volunteers would find me that way.
The other thing as well is, if you're reading off a script, you can't react to the people that you're speaking to. So one of the other things I found is I was at a candidate forum and I had a 3-minute speech. So I timed out this speech to be 3 minutes exact, and I'm reading it off. And as soon as I start speaking, something happened that I didn't expect. The crowd actually started cheering me, which is a good thing. But I freaked out because I'm like, oh no, I'm not. Like, if I wait for them to calm down, I'm not going to have my 3 minutes. So yeah, so I think it's definitely important to be able to react, to speak off the cuff and be able to react to the audience and who you're speaking to. But Rebecca, do you have any questions?
Yes, so will Stand Up and Vote be active for the state elections or more focusing on federal election?
We're planning to, but it definitely depends on our support. It was a rough run. My family did not have dinner with me for almost 2 months. And so that was difficult. So like, even within our committee, there's a lot of people on the committee, but then there's a few people who are doing a lot. And so it really just depends on our support and how sustainable it is for us. We would like to get involved in all of it. We're committed. We're not going anywhere. For each of the people within Stand Up and Vote, our freedoms have been directly impacted or lost jobs by mandates, or my eldest daughter is a third-year paramedic student. So for each of us, we have a personal reason why we are 100% committed to change in the country, no matter how long it takes. And, we heard so many stories. We still are hearing so many stories every day of people who are suffering. So there's no way we can turn away from that. We have a vehicle that we think has got some legs. We think that we are doing good, honest work. We want to keep, for us, it was really important to make sure that everything we said was 100% correct, that there was no misinformation anything we gave out. There was so much within our community of incorrect information. So for us, we were trying to do as much as we could to make sure that was correct, and we're always going to need to do that, because I don't think that's going to change. There's always going to be misinformation and people spreading rumours about how things work, and so we know that our candidates are going to keep needing support, and so we're hoping that those people who did not necessarily volunteer, and we had hundreds, we had so many volunteers around the country and scrutineers, and we're so grateful to them, because many of them were completely stepping out of their comfort zone. The scrutineer was a stressful thing, and they watched our training and they got to it, and they stepped up and did that. And so for all of those, we're incredibly grateful, but we need so many more. And so what you're scrolling there, Stephen, is basically the questions that we asked each of the candidates. And so there were 6 different questions that we asked them specifically around the handling of the pandemic. And we really just wanted a yes/no answer. So no political answers coming out of it. And it was yes, no, or they declined to answer the question. And so based on those responses, they had a traffic light system put against them. As to, agreeing was go. They did not like the way that the pandemic was handled, and so as far as we were concerned, they were coming at the top of the list as far as choosing a candidate. And then we had amber, we had red, which was like go at the bottom.
Were you disappointed with the? So obviously only myself and the UAP filled this in. Were you disappointed that the other parties didn't get involved as much as they should have?
Yes. We would have liked them to have all gotten involved. I think, a lot of them many of them refused to answer the questions because they couldn't see the questions in advance. So what the members of the public might not know is that when this was sent out, it was a survey. You couldn't see, the website was not published on purpose, or this part of the website, but you couldn't see it. So nobody had any heads up as to what the questions were or how anybody else answered the questions. And the links to them were specific to the candidates. They couldn't share it, or, one candidate answer the questions when they realized if a red or a yes or a no is a good or a bad answer it for another candidate to make them look bad. So we were quite specific about that. Because there are certainly, as we've seen in Parliament, there are some Liberal candidates who are, as far as we're concerned, freedom candidates. And so we couldn't base it just on party. We really wanted it to be specific. So something that we found was interesting was that there were certain parties who just didn't take it seriously, like they don't care. And that's great. People need to know that. And then there were others that simply because they couldn't see the questions straight up, they weren't even prepared to put their feet in the water to see what it was going to be. And so we had some emails back and forth with some candidates who weren't prepared to answer the survey unless we would tell them up front what the questions were, which of course we would not. So the flip side of that, of course, is that there may have been some independent candidates who did not get back to us, who were put as a red, and they may not have been a red, but they declined to answer the questionnaire. So that's unfortunate. And so that's something else. Like if candidates need to, this is something that's important too. Many of the candidates, there's no way of getting hold of them. There's no email address. There's no phone number. Or the email address is like the head office's email address. Or they're not checking their emails, or their party has given them an email address but they have no way to access it. So there were some of the parties had issues like that where they did not expect as many candidates as they got. And so they weren't prepared with the back end of actually giving them the support that they needed. So there was all those little kind of glitchy things that made it hard. So again, a lesson to learn going forward is make sure you're checking your emails. Make sure that you're responding to them and you're on top of it, because otherwise you could miss out. And it was the same, for us, we were happy to interview as many candidates as we could get on. But we had many who didn't ask to ever be on, or who asked and we'd already filled books because we had a time limit.
Who started Stand Up and Vote Australia? How did who was that? Sorry,
Dee Abel is our director of Stand Up and Vote. So Dee, originally I met Dee because I am on. So in Queensland we have an area called Logan. I'm on the committee for pro-choice anti-mandate Logan, and we had a community forum when we were having community forums, and we literally had a week to put the community forum together. We had over 600 people turn up. But Dee was one of the people that was recommended to come and speak because she was a nurse at our Logan hospital, which is our local hospital here, who had lost her jobs because of the mandates. And so she came and spoke really well, and had been doing various talks. And so that was when I first met her, was through that. And so when she basically just, you need to get her on to hear her story too, but she was trying to figure out what she could do. What can we do? How can we actually make a difference here? And what came to her was, well, what if we could actually show people how to vote correctly to make a difference? And so it was just an idea that came to her driving in her car. And then she took that and went, okay, how am I going to do this? I'm not tech savvy. I'm not sure about, all the social media stuff. And then she remembered me. And so there were a number of us who kind of got involved that way, that have our various skills. Our PR and marketing lady company that helped us to build our website, put in an incredible amount of money, all our own money, and most of it was funded by one particular lady who was amazing, and we can never repay her for that, really. But yeah, so we were really lucky to have some incredible people who just came on board with us, and then Dee and I and the rest of the team, Jewel Burbridge, who is did all of our photo education material, and so we had these really fantastic people that all just jumped on board. So that's really where it started with Dee's baby. She was like, how are we going to make a difference? And then got a group together. And as you do, there was a larger group in the beginning, and then there's a couple of us who just went hard to the wire, right to the end. Lots of sleepless nights. But friendships, I think, that will last for a lifetime. We've forged the process of that.
So you've already repaid the amazing donor, because you've already made a difference and you've already made change, and that's what that person was wanting in the end. So I think it's about growing and continuing the vision. So so that's amazing.
That's what we've promised her, is that we're not done. Yeah, we're not done. And I actually got on and did a Facebook video after the election, because I did find in that first week everybody was just so depressed and so sad, and I was like, it's not over, people. Pick your little chins up. This is just the beginning. And so that's what I really want to encourage people. This, as you say, Stephen, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. This movement is so young. If you consider the impact, I guess, that the Greens have had in this election, how long it's taken them to get that kind of momentum, we've already beaten the speed with what they're doing, and this is just a grassroots. We've got everything against us. We've got no media support.
Yeah. No social media support.
Nothing. Yes, this is.
And when you do get media coverage, they're just trying to discredit you and slander you, which is what happened
right.
to me.
The only media support we saw was, various candidates that got hit in the media. Heston Russell, Rebecca Lloyd, there were a few of them. If people had seen their names in the media, it was because someone was trying to say something bad about them, but there was never anything positive. Which, I mean, as I say, so many incredible candidates, so many amazing stories. The backgrounds of people who I was interviewing was just, I would get off and go and speak to my husband, my family, oh my gosh, this person's story was just incredible of how they've gotten to this, and sometimes really heartbreaking. And so So yeah, I mean, for me, it's just for people to understand that it's not over. Like, this is like the longest election count in the history of ever. My husband is from America, and he's like, how is this even a thing? Like, when was the election and we're still counting? Like, how is that even, who's checking that? Like, where are the people that are watching? Anyway, so I mean, that's ridiculous, but it's still not over. Our goal was to get extra Senate candidates in, and I'm hoping that we've done that. And if we have, we will take that as a win, because that's really where the rubber hits the road, when decisions are being made that affect all of us. So we'll take that as a win. And so I don't think it's, certainly not all over Red Rover, and this was like an all or nothing attempt. I think right now is the time where the greater population is going to feel some pain, and realize that, I mean, I think for many places it was just a vote of opposition. Like, even if they were, Liberal voters forever, they were just like, I'm just letting you know I'm really mad about whatever you've done, and so I'm just going to vote like the opposite of you. And so now they have to feel what the opposite of that feels like. I'm imagining it's not going to feel much better. So then what choices do you have? Like, and so it's that idea of people waking up and feeling the pain because they don't go into any kind of action or thinking or inquiring if they're comfortable.
I have to say, in my experience on pre-poll, it's the newly, registered voters, so the ones that have just turned 18, that were taking Greens and Labor and very far left political party how to vote cards, and that's all that they were really interested in. So from your opinion, what do you think we could do to try and persuade or perhaps educate the upcoming generation of voters to start looking more deeply into the minor parties and sort of not just looking at the media's point of view?
I think you have to be where they are. So I don't know if that's unis. I don't know if that's TikTok. But you have to be where they are, because all that they're seeing all the time on everything that they're on are those ideas. And so, I mean, we were hopeful for, UAP had a policy around student debt. And I was like, said to my daughter, you've got to tell like all your mates. Like if that like these guys have a policy around student debt, like they need to know. And they didn't, I don't know if they didn't make an impact or they're more concerned about this idea that they've been, have around the policies that the Greens are pushing. But they're getting it from everywhere. It's on every platform all the time. The only person that my 12-year-old knew, that she knew the Freedom Party. She knew UAP because they're on YouTube. That's it. But other than that, she was like, oh yes, the Freedom Party. She knew about them. She knew their names, but she didn't know anybody else. And so I think that's, in order to educate those kids, you have to be where they are. We also have a little bit of a dream to be able to get into high school and educate grade 12 students on how the voting system works. Again, the trick is that the schools have to let us do that. Because, for us, our kids go to Canberra, before COVID, they all went to Canberra in grade 6. They thought about politics in grade 6. But then it's not really when they need to know about politics. They need to know how to vote in their lead school, because they're going to be expected to vote the following year or that year. And so for most of them, they have absolutely no idea how that works.
What I'd like to see is more people letting them know that these policies they're voting for means no Wi-Fi, no iPhone, no fake eyelashes, no petrol cars. Basically, the life that they live in, as everything that they know, will cease to exist if it's left up to the parties that their, schools or their universities are educating them in voting for.
Yeah, and I think, for most of them, politics is boring. So it's exactly that. It's making it relatable to something that they care about. Because for now, they're like, well, I care about saving the turtles. Like, I care about that. I care about the planet, and I care about, you know, whatever. Like, that's, so for them, that's like they're getting that all the time, and they can relate to that. And but as you know, as far as like how does this actually affect your life, they don't. Politics in general, policy in general, they don't have the attention span for most of them to look at anything, you know, and that's why we started doing educational videos that were not longer than 3 minutes. We had a time limit on them, and my 12-year-old was the narrator, and so we did, you know, scribbly videos with pictures, and my 12-year-old spoke on it. And we kept it under 3 minutes in the hope.
That's
again,
really
that
cool.
Yeah, it was
That's
fun
cool.
to have her and have her voice there. It was really interesting, and I think she felt, you know, kind of proud that she had got a part to play in educating people about how the voting system works, and now she knows too how it works. So so that's really cool. But I think that's the deal. It's like to try and get those kids on the level where they're at. And if we can get into schools, all the better.
One of the things you mentioned before was that the different freedom groups kind of had their own agendas. There were different egos and things like that that probably fragmented the whole movement. Have you reached out to any other freedom groups to work with them or combine with them or try and do something with them going forward?
We certainly did. We have been doing, and will continue to try and do that. Yes, there's many of them. You know, they now have personal issues with each other, and then that separates their various communities. You know, so it's just put that aside, like just drop the ego. And I get it. You know, when you've got like 50,000 people standing in front of you, and before this time you didn't. It's easy for that to go to your head. But I think if they could sit down and really get it together and work as a unit, would make a huge difference. Because it's not. There's definitely, I think, I never went to Canberra, but I know people who definitely saw that when they kind of did the whole, you know, traveling to Canberra, and they were there for weeks. That was really obvious, those divided, kind of segregated, you know, parts of the community. And we don't need that. You know, we get enough of a hard time from people on the other side of the fence. You know, we don't need it within our own community. We need it to work together. So yeah, to see those egos drop, to see everybody working towards the goal, would be awesome, and we will continue to do that going forward. Yeah, and we certainly have tried, and some are more receptive than others.
I'll be receptive for state.
Sorry?
I said I'll be receptive in state. So when if I get to run for state, I'll let you know. I'll contact you guys. Okay? We'll do interviews, meetings. I'll fill out the report and everything.
We tried so hard to get people to fill out that thing. Like, we sent email after reminder. We messaged people on Facebook. Like, we did as much as we could to get as many candidates as we could to fill those out. I think in the end we probably got the best personalised response of anybody in the country. But we had so many volunteers working on trying to get people's details and on messaging people and trying to get those responses back, because without them, there's no point to the website. It's a whole big website of red, because there's, you know, so we had to get those responses, and it pushed us out by about a week and a half getting our website published, just chasing up people to try and get responses.
Absolutely. Well, I'll fill it out. I'm sure. I can't remember if I filled it out or not now, because now I'm feeling guilty. I'm going to go through all my emails and see if I received an email in the first place.
Stephen will be able to look. You can go and have a look at your electorate.
Oh no! Don't do it live. Oh, here we go. It's all
very good. It's all green.
Well, I know I did it, so
I know I did answer it then.
There's your mate, Freelander. He didn't. He bailed.
Yeah, but that's because he's too far away.
He loves the mandates and the jabs, anyways. Freelander.
Yeah, well,
How many candidates did you have, Rebecca? Seriously, look at all these people.
I had 9. What was that? Sorry.
You had all
we
these
had 9 candidates.
That's crazy, and you did so well.
Thank you.
You smashed it, Rebecca.
And I think that's where it was important, because I would not have known, like, before this time, that like shooters, fishers, and farmers were a freedom party. I wouldn't have known that. Most people would not have thought about that. So it was surprising that there were so many of them that had various policies that, had we not done this, we would not have known what side of the fence that, you know. And then again, there was the marijuana party, who I would presume they would be for freedom, but some of them were, and some of them thought that mandates were a great thing. So
that's such a like conflict right there.
Yeah, so you can't, you know, that's why we thought it was so important that we got people's individual answers, because some of you had it in your policies. It was obvious, it was clear. And there were other parties where it was not so much. So it was good to get those individual responses.
That's a very confusing point of view to have, but anyway.
Yeah.
So we've already kept you an hour. So is there anything you'd like to mention just before we finish?
No, not at all. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for having me on. I hope to see you guys again, and I hope to see you out there again. I think you're all fantastic. And I hope that next time around that your electorates see that too, and are open-minded and are prepared to really, fight hard for you guys, because that's what it's going to take. They're going to have to barricade for you, and without that, we're going to keep finding ourselves in the same situation. So we're going to do our very best to make sure you have as much help as we can possibly give you.
And it's Adam's turn for speed round right now.
Come on, go.
He's ready.
Let's go. I'm ready. I've been doing it for 6 months now. So, like as we were speaking before about speaking off the cuff and things like that, you can't do it at the very start of your campaign. But by the end of it, you start to get pretty used to what your policies are and where you stand and all the order of the things, the way things kind of go. So, and plus when you a lot of us work full time, so it's hard to prepare all the time.
In front of your cat, in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if you would have been able to do it in 10 minutes, Adam.
He'd do it in 5.
Yeah, because I ramble on. See, I'm the rambler. I'm the one who just talks too much.
Well, we made sure that everybody had their own timer as well, because that was hard. I was like, and we've got 6 minutes left. Like, I could see that we're going off. But everybody was really good. I think everybody stayed within their time period. So.
And where's the best place to go to follow everything that you're doing?
Yeah, so our Facebook page is still pretty active. So that's just Stand Up and Vote Australia. We're also on Twitter. I'm on TikTok, Lionhearted Mama. People can ask to be my friend on Facebook, Yvette Peterson. I'm happy to chat. And we're on Instagram as well. Otherwise, you can reach any of us just at just Yvette, so that's YVETTE at standupandvote.com.au.
So I was saying your name wrong in the beginning?
Yvette.
Was it Yvette? Or
I think
I was saying
right.
Yvette. I think I said Yvette.
Oh, yeah, you probably did. It's Yvette, but that's okay. I take almost anything because people can really, really butcher it. Funnily enough, I actually have a backup profile, which is a spin on my name, because Facebook was getting really antsy with me being an admin in so many big groups, and they were threatening to close my profile down. And
wow.
So some people know me as Yvette, and some people know me as Eve, and I will respond to either. But I had to do that because obviously my business is network marketing and my profile is important to me. So I had to basically build Eve as a buffer to protect my profile. So Eve is an admin in a whole bunch of different groups, and she's my backup. She's a lot more of a smart aleck than I am. She's a lot braver in what she says, Eve.
You've already developed a personality for her.
Yeah, she's a lot more controversial. Yvette is like, Yvette has to kind of stay within I have a lot of my child's parents, that are there with Yvette. And so Yvette has to be a little more under the radar and more polite and has a slightly different focus. But Eve is she's a loose unit. And so, and then on TikTok is another level. So it's fun to be able to play with all of it and have those different,
That's all that Facebook is. Everyone just playing a role, isn't it?
It is, but I think for me it's really it's different parts of my personality that I'm finding as I go. I'm certainly a lot braver than I used to be. There were many years where there was a lot I wanted to say, and because my business is on social media, I was scared to say that, and then I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't sleep. I used to get so annoyed with various things that were going on that I was not saying that I felt was important to say, that I was giving the other night. And so that's when I started just saying all sorts of things, and I offended a lot of people. But that's okay. The people that are now on either one of those Facebook profiles or who follow me anywhere know exactly who I am. Even though I'm, on Yvette Peterson, I'm a little more polite about it, but there's no confusion as to where I stand and what's important to me. And I think that's how we all have to be. For you guys, you put your lives out on Facebook, doing Facebook Live and all that sort of stuff. A lot of that had the kids out there and whatever, and that's what people connect with. So no matter which profile people are following me on, they'll still get me. Just different aspects, maybe.
Thank you very much for coming on, and we really appreciate it. And we appreciate everything you did for not just for One Nation candidates, but all Freedom Party candidates.
You're most welcome.
All right, guys. So how was that for you? Yvette was a great guest. So. Thank you very much for having her on. Do you have any comments after anything she said there, Adam?
I just think that it's really good that people like Yvette and a few of the other people that she did mention actually had the courage to stand up. And Yvette mentioned that she didn't have the courage to stand up and become a candidate, but she had the courage and knowledge to actually start a platform where candidates can get exposure. So it takes all of us as a unit to get ahead against the majors. So I'd just like to thank her and her team for actually standing up and doing that. So Stand Up and Vote Australia is awesome.
Everyone has their part to play. So not everyone can be a candidate, but everyone has, I think what those guys did there was extremely valuable. I was just annoyed that I didn't get the chance to do the speed round series. But next time. I think Rebecca should do a speed round for us.
Okay.
She was the only one that got to do it. So
I'm happy to do it. I'll just have to practice with Adam keep it under 10 minutes.
Not me. I'm going to be over 10 minutes easy.
No, because it happened to me when I went to one of those forums, but it was through the Chamber of Commerce. So they ring a bell when you've got 1 minute left, and then they ring a bell when your time's up, and you get 4 minutes. And so I was so in the zone that she rang the bell, and I just thought that she was telling me I still had a minute. So I just kept talking, and then I finally looked up, and she's got the bell, and she's going. I was like, "Oh, bye," and then just walked off.
Well, I'll have you know that I also did a forum, and we were timed, and I was inside my time the whole time, so I can follow the rules. I just choose not to when we're doing our own podcast.
Okay.
All right, let's finish with some questions just quickly. Harry Jeffries, again, a friend of the show. What's something that both state and federal government should do to ease the grip of inflation?
Stop handing money out willy-nilly, for one. Like, every time there's a problem, let's just throw $3,000 at this person and $200 at this person, and let's give everyone a pay rise. Like, let's just settle down.
Maybe they should have managed. Sorry, keep going.
No, I was going to say, I can't believe that they're just going to throw $3,000 at each nurse or service. But I've got no problem with, like, nurses or frontliners or anything like that. I just want to clear that up. But if you calculate how much money that's like going to be, like with the amount of people that are in that industry, why wouldn't you just collaborate that fund and put it into the hospital to make it like for resources and facilities, then bring back the experienced workers that have been stood down from the mandates. Problem solved.
That's it. Problem solved.
That's just one
the mandates. And the mandates.
Stop putting sanctions on a country that's fighting a war that's got absolutely nothing to do with us and punishing your citizens because we can't get fuel from there anymore. Like, you're literally throwing us under the bus.
The thing with me for this sort of question, like, we don't want governments, they've done enough harm. Like, everyone's looking, what's government going to do to ease inflation? Well, they're the ones that caused it all by printing all the money and everything like that. So the sooner we get them out of the way, the better, I think. And just that.
Go back to the gold standard.
Well,
what do we do though? We're always going to have a government. We're always going to have people somehow.
Yeah, but we also have a free market as well, and that was one of Keating's big successes, was that he moved the economy away from government control and more into a free market system. So I don't think, people ask what should government do. We'll just get out of the way. Like, stop screwing everything up. I think that's the biggest thing.
Wouldn't it be nice to bring back manufacturing? So back to how we were back in the 70s and before, where we were completely self-sufficient. Wouldn't that just be something that would reduce costs for us nationwide? Because
it's too expensive. Labor and energy is too expensive, so they moved to China and other places. It's a lot cheaper to manufacture there. So
I think that's manufactured. It's manufactured expense though. So they made it expensive so that they could move manufacturing and stuff offshore.
But I think I'm just looking at things like, well, suddenly we're paying $2 a pop for fuel because we can't get, because it's a scarce resource now because we get it from Russia, and we're punishing Russia by not buying things from them, which is only really crippling us. So imagine if we had access to our own, oils and things within Australia, we wouldn't be relying on other countries. So if they did whatever they wanted to do, that's fine. But we're over in our little country doing our own thing.
Yeah. Well, is a lot of our policies were based on that anyway. Is about bringing back manufacturing.
100%. That's what I'm saying. One nation is about Australia and Australians for a reason.
That's right. And what it does is it just makes us. I mean, look. You know what? If we to manufacture our own fuel for our vehicles, okay, if it costs $3 a litre, then the market would adjust. So if we had to have Australian-made fuel and say put the price up to $3 a litre, our market would adjust to all that anyway, if you know what I mean. So you would, like, if we're making fuel here, then more people are working in fuel refinement and mining oil and all that kind of stuff. And then it all knocks on from there. At one point in time, we were self-sufficient, and what happens is to get back
all our oil.
Sorry?
We were refining all our oil.
That's right. So to get back to that, there's always going to be a pinch. And actually, that's what Yvette said, which was very well. Oh, look.
Add that to it as well, Stephen.
Well, we're all gonna do it. I forgot my point now, so you'll have to edit that one out. All right? That's not going to get edited. I'm going to tell you that won't get edited out because he has it in for me, guys.
I'm going to leave it in. It's too hard.
He'll leave it in. He'll just leave it in.
Edit that. Don't stop talking. You got to have a pause for me to edit.
Snap.
All right.
I don't stop talking.
Quickly, we need to address this article from yesterday. Healthy young people are dying suddenly and unexpectedly from a mysterious syndrome as doctors seek answers through a new national register. The sudden adult death syndrome. What do you think about this, Adam?
I just don't think they won't investigate it properly because they've already given it a name and fobbed it off as people dying for no reason. So I think if it's not going to be a true inquiry, we're never going to get an answer for it.
Is it normal for people in their 30s to have heart attacks and die in their sleep?
Oh, apparently it is. Sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah. So
All right. Rebecca made a good point about this before when we were speaking. Does anybody know anybody before the previous 2 years that would just dropped at young, say under 40 years old? How many stories have you heard of somebody under 40-year-old without comorbidities or without an addiction, say, just drop?
Well, it used to be anyone under 50 was bizarre.
It was.
Tax. So.
Well, I think also just looking at the average lifespan as well of people today, like even you see someone pass away at 60, you think, geez, that was young.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying it doesn't happen here and there, you know, but like just being someone who's pretty healthy and like, you know, throughout my life, I haven't heard of somebody that was also healthy and young just having a heart attack and passing away or just not waking up from their sleep, which it's like I know directly 3 people in the last probably 2 months or so who either know someone who's had a heart attack and survived or had a heart attack and passed or for not woken up from their sleep, and they're all under 30.
I just think if that happened, you know, when I was growing up, if I heard of someone dying in their sleep at 30, you would think they were poisoned or something like that. Like, you know, there must be something else that has gone wrong. Like, I didn't even.
And they can usually pinpoint what has happened, not just it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been like an embolism or something, or like they would have had like a blood clot in the lung, or they would have had like an embolism where they bleed in the brain or something like that, and that's what kind of like took them out. You know what I mean? It's something that's mechanically went wrong, which happens. You know, so like we're not saying
not often though.
It doesn't happen very often, but that article that article there was that 750 people under the age of 40 a year with unexplained deaths, or was it monthly, or what was that number? I read it.
So was right here. There are approximately 750 cases per year of people under 50 in Victoria. That's just Victoria alone.
Victoria alone.
Well, since when though? Since 2020?
Yes. When was the start date?
You only have to look at the Bureau of Statistics to see the absolute freakish increase in deaths since the rollout.
The article doesn't specify actually.
It only says here, of these, approximately 100 young people per year will have no cause found even after extensive investigations and a full autopsy. So
they're saying 100 is average, but we're talking about 750.
750. So 7 times more people now are dying with no reason.
750 per year only in Victoria. So it's it's a lot, I think, unless this is getting more focus than in the past, where maybe it didn't get focus. But I don't know.
I think with this article from the Daily Mail, I think the reporter should have specified where they got this number, when this number started. So has this been intergenerational, or was it started? Let's say it started from 2020. So they're saying that 100. It's normal. It's normal for about 100 people under the age of 50 to die every year without a known cause. So that fair enough. Okay, but then they're saying 750. Is that from, let's say, 2019 or 2020 when the rollout happened? That should be specified in there.
Yeah, well, it's okay. So the 750 is under people that are under 50. And then it says of these approximately 100 young people. So what does young people mean? Is that?
Don't you guys notice a trend in mainstream? Like, for example, remember when the rollout first started, and there was like a common trend that people were getting blood clots, whether it had been from a specific brand. Then all of a sudden we got a new symptom that was from COVID, which COVID causes blood clots, which from 18 months of pure propaganda, fear porn, never once was it said that you would get blood clots from COVID until the rollout started and clots became a thing. It said, oh no, it's actually a side effect from COVID. Then when all the mandates were implemented and we started seeing these freakish shortages in all these industries, it was then, it's because of COVID. not because of the mandate, it's because of the COVID.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful not to, I guess, make that connection. It's up to people to draw those conclusions themselves. But obviously,
Oh, totally. But that's what I've noticed. There's
going
always
wrong.
an answer.
Yeah, something is not right.
Well, I think everybody should start watching and reading Epoch News, because they report about all these kind of things quite often. So you could actually, get information other than mainstream to actually make a decision on where you stand. So Epoch News is a good one to read.
Okay. So I think that's it for this week. Thank you again, guys, for great. We had our first guest, so we're off to the races now. So I guess we'll see everyone next time.
Yeah, no worries. Are you going to sign us out, or was the sign out?
Sign out, I guess, unless you can sign us out, Adam.
Take it away, Adam.
I'm going to sign us out. You take it away, Rebecca. You're the one who hasn't said it introed or outroed yet.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend, and see you next week.
See you later.